When I think about that, I just think about the loneliness, the isolation, feeling like I had no one in this world that was in my corner, no one cheering me on, no one helping me, no one checking in on me to see, hey, how did that hard thing go? How did that conversation go? That the suffering in silence is exactly, I feel like that is the best words for it, is I was suffering alone.
You said a quote, "I don't love him. How do I fight for a man I don't love anymore?"
You don't want to go through a crisis thinking God has deserted you. It's not the case. He's right there and he's waiting to speak to you. Sometimes we need other people to deliver that message when we're not able to access it ourselves. Today, I'm going to be sharing about a breaking point that I hit in our marriage that I didn't know what to do. And I was very reluctant to reach out for the support that I needed.
What about you? Have you ever felt trapped in a situation or a relationship and you wanted to reach out for help and didn't know where to turn to, didn't know who to ask?
You know, last week we talked about what was holding you back from getting help.
What do people think about me?
Judgment. Yeah. And so I think you're going to hear something different in this episode of how I was looking at the support that I really needed. And we're going to jump into a chapter, that I wrote. So this is a portion from my part of the book. When I say I am grateful for our therapist, I really mean it. I was so thankful to have one person in my corner there to support me. It was the first time I experienced this, and it gave me so much courage and confidence that I was not suffering in silence anymore. I had a person just for me, and she was awesome. That day, she helped me understand the severity of what I was describing to her. I told her I was fearful that the arguing would possibly escalate to being physical because of the level the anger was getting to, and it was out of control. The synergy of the mixture of alcohol and pills was unpredictable, and it was such a scary experience to go through. I knew it wasn't healthy, and I knew I was prepared this time to take our daughter and leave if it did not improve, and I mean soon. After all, I don't love him anymore. How do I fight for a man I don't love? Looking back, I can see the pride in my thought process. I wasn't wanting something different for Travis. I wanted something different for me. This was impacting me in a negative way, and I had had enough of it. My motives were not in the best of places, and there was real concern about the progression of this. I knew I couldn't stay married to an addict. How did he go from police officer to addict? Marley helped me wrap my mind around the best verbiage, how to say what I needed to say, and when is the right time to bring it up. When I left her office, I had a plan, and I had courage to do what I needed to do.
Last week, we talked about the judgment that we have for ourselves and we project onto others. Do you think you experienced this judgment in this situation?
I'm not sure that because I don't remember it crossing my mind, what is Marley going to think about me? But I was getting to the point where there was trust there with her that I felt like I could be fully open in sharing with her. But for me, what I can see is I had already tried it all myself. I had tried all the ways that I thought would make a difference and create change, and nothing had worked. I was at the end of my rope. I was at the end of my resources, and I was desperate for help. I was desperate for someone to guide me in an area that I knew I didn't have the knowledge and the wisdom to get through in a healthy way. I knew if I tried to have a conversation that was change needs to happen or else, like a boundary line, I knew I'd mess it up and we would just argue and it would be worse off than when I tried or how we were before that.
I'm so thankful that you went and got help. You said you waited until you were at the very last point of beyond yourself. You were almost beyond yourself, and then you went and got help. But I think it's also important to note that we don't need to wait till we get to that point either.
I wish I would have gotten the support so much sooner, because I think we could have been addressing things.
When would you?
Well, now I get immediate. I know that I don't have this life figured out, and I know that there's more wise people out there than me, who have the skills and the knowledge to help me get through what I'm getting through. Not only that, I have seen that the enemy brings this huge veil over me to make me think I don't need help, that anytime I feel that, you don't need anybody. Man, I push through that so fast, and I immediately reach out for help, because I know if the enemy doesn't want help for me, then there's actually help for me on the other side. Like God has something for me in that if there's opposition there.
I experienced that when we were writing our book. I told you that there was one day I was writing the section on cosmic warfare, and I felt like I needed help, and I did not want to reach out to my friends for help. Until I did. You convinced me. I reached out. I was so grateful I reached out for help and support. But I did not want to until then.
Yeah.
You had a quote in what you just read. It says, not suffering in silence anymore. What was it like to suffer in silence and not have anyone on your team?
When I think about that, I just think about the loneliness, the isolation, feeling like I had no one in this world that was in my corner, no one cheering me on, no one helping me, no one checking in on me to see, hey, how did that hard thing go? How did that conversation go? That the suffering in silence is exactly, I feel like that is the best words for it, is I was suffering alone.
I'm sure a lot of people listening to this right now can relate to that right there, this suffering alone. I can't trust anyone. Everyone's against me. No one's on my team. Different lies of the enemy.
No one understands what I'm going through.
I'm all alone in this.
And I think that's a lot how Marley really earned my trust, is by validating what I was going through and pulling out the things that she saw. These things are important to look at, that I was downplaying in my own mind and normalizing, that I didn't even realize the severity of where we had gotten in our relationship. Like with the amount of arguing that we had, like it was getting intense.
Yeah.
With the level of yelling and screaming and calling each other names and just things that I look back as so destructive that I normalized that as though it's not that bad.
Right. But that might be something you're saying too, is you're normalizing and saying, well, it's not that bad. It could be worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it really takes so much courage to share real personal experiences and what's going on behind closed doors.
That's what I want to acknowledge you for, is being able to share that what goes on behind closed doors. Other people don't know what goes on in your home. You do. God does. And it's important. It takes vulnerability. It takes some maturity to be able to get other people involved to help with what's going on behind the closed doors. And you're not alone in this. You can find someone that can help you walk through this.
Yeah. Yeah. If you are lacking that courage, I would encourage you, pray that God will fill you with courage to get the support and the help that you need. God did not create us to do this life alone in isolation. He created us for community.
That's right.
I see that so clearly now with me running for help when I need it.
But there is a real enemy who writes lies on our hearts, who has us want to isolate, withdraw, go into a hole, hide. And there's nothing for you in that hole. There's nothing for you in hiding. When we do that, that's when the volume turns up in our head. That's
darkness.
When it becomes dark around us.
Yeah, it really is. It goes back to getting darkness into light. And we're going to talk about, like, how do I find the right person to share with? Because not every therapist is the right therapist.
You said that your therapist helped you realize the seriousness of what was going on in your situation. And I'm curious, before seeking professional help, did you downplay the seriousness, or did you justify what was going on?
Well, I don't remember what episode it was, but it's the Mask of Perfectionism. So it's kind of early on, like 4 or 5 or something like that. But I wanted such a perfect life, and I was living in that reality that was not a real reality, but I had created this reality online that I would live in it in my mind. And I would remind myself of, we do have good times. It's not all bad. We don't argue 24/7, so it's not that bad. And I would actually forget about those things in my mind, like they didn't exist until they would again. And then I'd go back through this process of perfecting that little part and pushing it to the side.
This is good. Way to go. Yeah.
And so, it's having the awareness. That's what Marley helped me with. She helped me realize that what I was believing is not actually what's happening. And she was able to see that in my sharing, that I would have this one way of sharing of perfect life, everything's good. And then as she got deeper in questions, there's this real life that I'm living, that I'm actually full of fear, full of isolation, and feeling alone and lost and confused. But over here, that's not the words that were coming out. And she's trained. We're trained to listen for that with our clients. There is so much value in having someone healthy and whole on the other side of me, listening for inconsistencies when I'm speaking to help bring darkness into the light.
That's what I hear you saying, is what you were able to get with professional help is clarity around truth. Around truth. Whenever she brought this up, you're able to see a more clear picture that isn't convoluted, that isn't stretched all over your mind.
Right.
It's very clear. It's not that there's not a problem, but you have a clear, defined problem.
Right.
That you can do something about.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. She really helped me identify a lot of things. And I'll never forget that day walking out of there with a plan. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but how empowering that felt to have a way forward that I didn't have when I walked in there.
Right. You said a quote, "I don't love him. How do I fight for a man I don't love anymore?" I think this is going to be very helpful for our audience, Adelle. How do you fight for a spouse that you no longer have love for?
Yeah. The reason I would fight now are so different than the reasons I was fighting then. My fight back then was a determination that I am a loyal person and I'll do whatever it takes to fix you and get you better because you are negatively impacting me and I'm stuck here.
I imagine a lot of relationships are going to relate to that. Is there's something wrong with you, not me, and you need to be fixed.
Yes. Oh, and man, Marley really, really helped me see I had a lot of stuff on my side going on. that had I not opened up to listening to her identify truth in our marriage, I wouldn't have opened up for her to identify truth in myself either. But she helped me identify so much around like, am I in love with you? Why am I not in love with you? You know, what are the things that have come between that relationship? And when I look back at like this fight that I had in me, and even though it wasn't like a healthy perspective of that fight, I'm really glad I had it, because that's why I reached out for help, is I was determined to fight for you and for your life and
I'm grateful.
Our marriage, because I wanted something better for us and I just didn't know how to access it.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for wanting to
welcome.
fight for our marriage. Thank you for seeking help. You know, on this episode, we're talking about reaching out for help. And I'm curious, have you ever considered reaching out for help? And have you had a reluctancy to reach out for help?
Specifically around your relationships. Because I could see that in my career, I was quick to reach out for help. But we're supposed to have it all together. We're supposed to have it figured out. Nobody can know that it's not. So I want you to just re-look at that question of, have you considered getting help for your relationship or your marriage struggles? That is a different reflection. It was for me. And then for those of you that are joining us live today, we would love for you.
Thank you for joining us live, by the way.
Yes.
We love it. We love to hang out with you in the live chat.
Yeah. Tell us where you're joining from today, and how important do you think it is to seek professional help for relationship issues? We're just curious what you have to say.
Let's talk about the importance of having a support system, because when we need help, now we need to, how do we get there? What is the importance of having it, and how do we get the help?
Yeah, I alluded to this already, but there are so many benefits from having a therapist, a coach, or a counselor in your corner. In that portion of the book that I wrote, I felt like Marley was the only one on this entire planet that was in my corner. But that was all I needed. One person.
It is nice.
One person. And that's what I share with the wives that I work with, is I am here to cheer for you, to support you, to encourage you, to root for you, to just be in your corner. I am your person, and I want you to reach out for me for all the things, so that we can identify what are the main areas that you really need healing and support, and where are you really struggling. And there are so many benefits. I see this more on this side, where I get to do this for other women versus when I was doing it with Marley, because I wouldn't get to speak with her for weeks on end in between appointments. Where in a digital world like we have today, I'm accessible. And so I literally watch it happen. Perspectives get changed, especially when there's a biblical perspective introduced, or something that the Holy Spirit is I'm being a vessel for. I watch things disappear. I watch triggers get interrupted. I watch hearts get opened in a matter of an instant. That's how important professional help can be in the moment of crisis, but also just in the everyday things of hey, Travis said this to me and it really hurt my heart and I don't know what to say. Can you help me? That's one of my favorite things to do, is help people with verbiage, because we don't know how to say what's in our heart. And man, Marley really did that for me. She gave me verbiage. I didn't have it. I didn't have the words. I wasn't a great communicator. I tried a lot and failed when it was coming to sharing with you.
I find that to be one of the most helpful things to do is good verbiage, the words that come out of my mouth, because sometimes what I initially think to say is not the right thing. And so having more clarity about the words to say is good. Earlier, you were talking about the women that you coach, and I just want to acknowledge you that the women that are in our intensive program, those are the ones that have access to you.
Right.
And I see the messages come in, and I see you have an ability to respond, and then I can hear from your comments how the shift can happen. And I'm like, that availability, that ability in a marriage that, these are people that are in other countries and other states that during that time, man, they're in turmoil and crisis, and they can send a message out. And within about 5-10 minutes, they get another message back that is full of hope, encouragement, life, truth,
validation,
empowerment, validation. And what was an argument, what was an issue between this relationship is now not. And way to go doing that. I think that you being a neutral, objective person to confide in is really important.
Well, I think that's the other thing about professional help is that person has a 3,000-foot view versus me, if I'm in crisis, is like, this is my view. I got one little tiny focus. And that's normal when we're in pain. Like, that's normal for you. We get hyper-focused on the struggles. But when somebody helps you take another viewpoint, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that reminds me of Psalm 23. It talks about you walk through the valley of death. I was just thinking, when I am walking through the valley of death, it's dark around my sides. It's right here. But thank God I'm walking and not standing in the valley of death, because I can walk on out to the other side. And getting that help helps to remove these walls to be able to see things more clearly. What a great
here's
visual.
something I think I need to bring up, because what I hear a lot is I have God and that's all I need. And that is true. However, my experience with women who are in crisis is there's a block between them and God because there's unforgiveness in the heart. And so don't let the enemy deceive you that all you need is you and God, because God made you to need community.
Yes.
We have to actually step into that. And what I've seen is the women that have the unforgiveness in their heart, they don't have access to God, so they're not actually hearing his direction and guidance, that through my voice, they can hear him.
Yeah.
But they can't hear him on their own because of that blockage until that's removed. And I just think that is valuable as well, because you don't want to go through a crisis thinking God has deserted you. It's not the case. He's right there and he's waiting to speak to you. Sometimes we need other people to deliver that message when we're not able to access it ourselves.
That's good. We need people around us. Proverbs talks about iron sharpening iron, the ability to communicate with each other, and truth and grace, being able to speak in over each other. It does sharpen each other. It does. Another verse in the Bible is confess your sins to your brothers so they can pray for you and you can be healed. What a great verse that signifies community is important around us.
Yeah.
Let's talk about recognizing the red flags or the warning signs within a relationship that would point us towards needing help.
Well, and I think that for me, Marley brought these things out, because I did not even know what were red flags back then. So you may need someone to help you identify red flags. But we're going to share with you what are some of the red flags that you guys really need support through.
One is constant arguments or conflicts in your relationships, frequency, the intensity. Are these conflicts resolved quickly? Are they pushed under the rug?
If you're having difficulty communicating and you are unable to express your feelings, your needs, or concerns openly with your spouse, you need support in learning how to do that. This is a learned skill. This is not a skill that we inherently are born with, is communication.
Another one is feeling disconnected or indifferent. That lack of emotional intimacy or the feeling emotionally distant from your partner. Like if that's going on, that would be a time to reach out as well. A red flag.
A lack of intimacy, whether that be a decreased physical intimacy or a lack of emotional intimacy. And so just if you are experiencing that, it's so important to figure out how can we move forward when there is a lack of those things.
And then betrayal, when there's trust established in a relationship in marriage and it has been broken, maybe through infidelity or other reasons, that would be something that you would also want to get help for, is how do I reestablish trust in the relationship?
Major life challenges. That's a huge one, because in one season we might be really good. We might be really connected. And then bam, something in life happens. And
Job
maybe
loss,
that's like
health issue,
or a loss in general, maybe an adoption in the family, or
a child is born.
And maybe it's something that's putting a strain on the marriage, like a wayward child or something like that. Those are things that we need support for. Let's just talk about our own daughter. This is how much we believe in support. Is she was 7, and we were just seeing that, man, we're not connecting with her. We're having some struggles disciplining her. Maybe there's a better way. Maybe you and I need to learn. So we took her back to our therapist, Marley, who we hadn't seen since we went to her for marriage counseling. And I've watched her influence in us change, not Haven. Haven's
right.
the same child. Change our perspective on Haven and how to love her well. So, yeah, that's important.
Another one to get help with, and this is specifically what Adelle was talking about, is substance abuse or addiction. Issues with alcohol, drugs, other addictive behaviors, being able to identify those and get help.
And domestic violence or abuse, physical, emotional, or psychological abuse, don't try to do that on your own. You really need someone in your corner.
Unresolved past issues, if you have significant trauma, things from your past, and we all have issues from our past. That's what we talk about on this show, is we have thorns. But you know what? There may be some really significant issues that would be extremely helpful if you got in front of a professional and you unpack those in a healthy environment so you can get good clarity around them. And so you can put those in the past where they belong.
And lastly, feeling stuck or unhappy. If you're feeling general dissatisfaction with the marriage and a sense of hopelessness, that needs to be addressed. Don't let that sit there. It's going to get worse. In fact, all of these things, if you don't get the support, they get worse. They do not get better. So we just want to encourage you to do that.
Next is just having the courage to prioritize the healing of your heart, having the courage to reach out and ask for help.
Yeah, it really does take
It's not
courage.
a sign of weakness.
It's strength.
It is strength whenever we reach out for help.
Yeah. So I want to encourage you, if you do see getting help as a sign of weakness, that is a lie from the enemy. It's a lie. So allow that to inspire you to go seek help when that lie is playing.
All right, let's bring some tools in. This is how we're going to equip us, is overcoming the obstacles and creating a plan. Just like what you did with Marley, is developing a plan. Her role in helping you.
So during my session with her that day, we were able to discover that there were definitely some things that needed addressed, and she helped me see that I was ready to create an ultimatum, which terrified me. I did not see that any way of creating an ultimatum would be a good thing, because I didn't even know if I could stand on my own 2 feet with an ultimatum. And so she I feel like I would have gotten it all wrong doing it myself. And she helped me realize the importance. She helped me see there's a time and a place for this. This is not just a casual conversation. There is specific verbiage that needs to be said. Your approach is really important. This is a hard boundary line that I am holding you accountable for. That right there, I needed that accountability because I could see myself having this conversation with Marley and then leaving and freaking myself out where I don't actually have the conversation. Yeah. And so I was able to leave having a clear plan of action to face that really difficult situation I knew was waiting at home for me. And I did not know exactly when I was going to have that conversation. And in fact, you're going to want to join us next week because we talk about more about that ultimatum. But I can see that she was so influential, so much so in that conversation that I had with you. And I don't remember, do you remember if I had notes in front of me? Did I have my journal? I feel like I had to take notes because she was giving me this verbiage and I was just like, I'm never going to remember this.
I think you did.
And I wanted to get it right because I wanted you to take me seriously and you hadn't. And I had been throwing out empty threats and that's not what this was. This was something I really needed for Haven and for our marriage. And so it made all the difference.
So I was going to say this. Ultimatums aren't for everyone. They're not necessarily the best route to go with relationships. Ultimatums are one of those last resort things when you cannot get across to someone. I just wanted to throw that out there in case somebody was wondering, do I just need to give my spouse an ultimatum?
No, please don't do that on your own.
No, communication is first.
Yeah.
Good communication is first. However, in our relationship, in our circumstances, the ultimatum was needed and was required.
Yeah, and you're going to talk next week about just how much you needed that and what was in the way of you just getting help for yourself. So that's going to be a really great episode coming up. But I want to encourage you, seek professional help around all the things that we mentioned today to help you create a really effective plan for yourself, for your relationship, and for your life. It will make a difference. We've seen it ourselves over and over again.
And you want to find the right person that you're going to speak with. If it's a counselor, a therapist, a coach, you want to find the right person that would fit you. What we recommend is people who are encouraging, life-giving, who love Jesus, who love you or will speak truth, grace into you. Those are the people that we would recommend you looking for. And if you don't find the right therapist, it's okay to go to another therapist. What I did was I went to a couple therapists and it just wasn't right for me and I just quit.
Well, it's easy to think they're all that way, but it does take time to find the right fit. And I just want to speak to those of you that are believers and caution you in seeking out a secular therapist. Because the way that our culture views marriage now is so different than the biblical view of marriage.
Especially there's a new type of psychology now.
Yes.
Called postmodernism, and it's wreaking havoc.
It's worldly. It's destructive to marriage. It's really important that you find the right fit for the right therapist or coach. It doesn't have to be a therapist or a counselor. We are coaches. Our focus is different than therapy and counseling. Our focus is moving forward, growth, freedom. That's our focus. And a lot of times, like even in our own experience, we focused a lot on the problems inside therapy and counseling. And so it's just different. It's a different route.
You mentioned going to a therapist. I also want to mention, the noble marriage. We provide a unique pathway to healing for yourself as well. We offer coaching. You can get that from thenoblemarriage.com. And we have great programs for you to be able to get health and healing in your marriage.
And one thing I want to just share is we get questions about our intensive programs, and what we have done there is combine proven strategies with a deep understanding of the complexities of marriage. And our focus is rebuilding trust, rekindling the intimacy, the emotional intimacy, and the physical intimacy inside your marriage, fostering emotional connection, and empowering couples to overcome obstacles, get freedom in your life. And that creates a lasting marriage bond.
You can go to our website, and I encourage you to read the testimonials from our other clients of their experience with the intensive and the freedom that they received.
I just have to say, when I read those testimonials, I was blown away. It makes me feel like it's not even in our ministry. Like, those testimonials could come from our intensive program. So I want to point more so to it's the Holy Spirit that is working in us, through us, to our couples. That is really the freedom that they're getting in their life. We are just those vessels. So I just feel very honored and privileged to be Miracle Watchers.
I agree. And you can click on an assessment call, and you can get that a call at a reduced value. And I guarantee you will get a lot of value out of that initial call.
Yes. Join us for the next episode, because we are going to be talking about the crushing weight of pride. And there's so much to come with that episode. So you're going to want to join us for that. And just thank you so much for joining us today. We forgot journaling questions.
I have it.
You have it.
So grab your journal. Grab your journal. You're going to want to write these questions down. Today, we've been talking all about getting professional help. And I would like for you to look at it in your own life. What would it be like for you if you chose to reach out and get help from someone else right now, today? Like, what kind of freedom, what kind of impact would you have in your own life if you chose to do that?
That was a good question. Thanks for sharing that.
And by when are you going to do it?
Oh, that's good. Accountability.
And a follow-up question is the accountability. Like, by when are you going to reach out to that person for help so that you can actually see that impact that you were able to discover?
Don't wait. You're worth it. Your heart is worth it. Your marriage is worth it. And who knows? What if that one person you reach out to for help makes all the difference for you? We just want to say thank you for joining us for this episode, and thank you for considering subscribing to this show. We're here to equip our audience, you, couples, with valuable practical tools to improve your relationship, rebuild trust, explore new levels of intimacy. And so if you found something valuable in this, share this with somebody you really care about. That, who knows? It may make all the difference for them in reaching out for the support that they really desire to reach out for, but they just need that extra courage. So I encourage you to share it.
Boom.
Yeah, just consider that. We just want to say thank you. We just want to say you.
We just want to say you.
Boom.
I think we're done.
I think we're done.
Great ending.
Yeah, I think we're done. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. That was a favorite episode.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that was fun.
Wow, that's amazing to me. I was thinking, man, this is probably my least favorite.
I had that similar experience because in the back of my mind, what I'm thinking other people are thinking is, oh, here we go again.
That's what
We're going to talk about getting help.
Yeah, that's what was going on with me. I'm sweaty over here.
Talk about lies and judgment
right now.
and impact.
Isn't that something?
Can I share what it's like on this side of the camera?
Oh,
yes, please.
Yeah, so I'm first off, title idea, how to stop either your/my silent suffering.
Ooh, I got it.
And right away, I was reminded about the impact of, well, we were just talking about the lies of judgment, but when nothing is said, like say we don't talk the next day, and I don't talk to anyone about it, it just continues to grow and manifest. It doesn't get smaller. It doesn't diminish on its own. And then all the Bible verses that, and you mentioned, I think it was James 5:16, therefore confess your sins so that you can pray for each other and find healing. And then Proverbs 28:13, 1 John 1:9 talk about the impact of concealing it versus confessing it. And I thought there really is the miracle of healing that happens through confessing. And it's like shining a light in a dark place.
Yes.
And it just it disempowers those lies.
Oh, that's good.
And there's oftentimes the judgment and pride that keeps me from sharing. I'm sure it does for other people. But because I'm like, oh, they're going to judge me. So I don't want to tell them about this. Like, I don't want to tell Travis that I had these thoughts of self-judgment. And he's going to judge me. And really, that's another lie that would keep the truth from coming out.
Man.
And there is an impact to that. And that is, it doesn't just maintain. There's a growth, a manifestation of these lies of judgment of that bring about this suffering and silence. And there's a big impact. Like you talked about, that led to a big ultimatum in your marriage.
It did.
And I'm sure it started out as a really small lie.
Right.
And when you didn't get the help, it manifested and got bigger and bigger and had this impact then on those around you that you love and care about.
Yes.
And when we're asking the people listening, Travis, your ending questions were great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was just Holy Spirit led. Like, what would it be like to reach out and get that help? And then the by when. But there's also, I think, another question, and that is, if you are still reluctant at this point in the episode, if you're still reluctant to seek help, what is it that you're scared of? And what is it that has you not seek that help?
Right.
Is there denial? Is there pride? Is it they're going to have
good.
judgment for me?
Yeah.
And then, whatever it is, consider that if you change nothing and you look back on your past and you consider how it's been going, and if you change nothing, how's it going to continue to go? And what is that default future or that predictable future that they will continue to live in? And is that something that you want? Or is there something else to create? If that's something else to create, who do you need to get help from to guide you in that direction?
What I love about the second question to the last that you just said is it will gain clarity.
Yeah.
So if I were to gain clarity from a therapist or someone who is unbiased or who can have me see something I cannot see, then I can at least deal with the truth of whatever it is I see now. And that is powerful.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's empowering rather than not getting help is disempowering.
It is.
It's victimhood.
I want to share a little bit. As Joel was talking, it reminded me of my therapy experience. So in 2007, I was required to go to a therapist because of the incident that I was involved in that I mentioned on one of these episodes. I was required to go, and I went, I think, 3 times, and I didn't care for it. Didn't care for the therapy or the therapist, and quit. I was only required to go 3 times, so I went. And then like a year or 2 later, another incident happened, and I was like, man, I need help. So I went to another. For 1 or 2 times, I'm like, this is not for me. The point of this is I spent 5 years not getting help. 5 years going through a self-help that is not helpful. It was destructive. I'll figure this out on my own. I'll read the books. I'll self-medicate. None of it helped me. So 5 years went by, and man, I was really bad off.
You were trying to stop drinking on your own. You were trying to reduce the medication you were on. And you tried a lot of ways.
That's when I finally was like, I've got to go. And that's when I found Marley. That was 12 years ago almost that I found her.
It's amazing. She's been in our life that long. I think something that's important to say is the times you were going to therapy, and even when you started going with Marley, you weren't transparent with her.
No, I wasn't.
You were going in there with all your fig leaves on.
Yes, I had fig leaves on.
I get that.
But it was helpful for me to go in. I'll share this, and can I trust you?
Yep.
Can I trust you with that little bit? Oh, I can trust you.
That.
Okay, I'll give you this one here too, and I'll start opening up a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it was so helpful because I've never done any of that. Nothing like that.
Well, growing up, the thought, and this isn't like my parents taught me this, but I got the concept that you're only getting help because of how broken you are. And I don't want to be seen as broken.
Oh,
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
I want to be seen as somebody that knows a lot and does things well and has a great life. And so I've got to put on this picture front view for other people. But I think that's where that is the pride that gets in the way.
Fig leaves.
The judgment. It's all these fig leaves that I started to recognize I could take all that off. And the only person I can do that in front of is Marley. I can't do that in front of you or anyone else. But it taught me that, wow, there are people out there that are trustworthy.
They're emotionally safe.
Yes. Yes. And that was huge for me to see, like, there's possibility in this.
Yeah. We need emotionally safe people.
Yeah.
To put it in a metaphor, when we experience spiritual attacks on us that show up as these lies from the enemy, you could imagine your computer or your phone, more likely your computer maybe, getting a virus.
Yes.
And if you've ever experienced that, it's like, I don't know what to do.
It's like slow erosion.
Yeah, but hey, I think I can fix it. And maybe you can, maybe you can't. But it's usually completely fixed by seeking help from someone who has already solved that problem.
It's a good metaphor.
And you have to be willing to show them your device, which these days could be metaphorically,
exposing.
It's very personal.
Yeah, it's very personal. So
Well,
you have
here's
to be vulnerable.
even to piggyback
That's
on what
good.
you
That's
just
good.
said. A lot of times, my computer, I'm addressing symptoms.
Yeah.
I'm addressing the surface things that I'm seeing, and that's what I was trying to do on my own in our marriage. Marley took me to the roots.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
Marley bypassed all the symptoms and was like, this is not our goal. We need to be over here looking at this. And it's just like what you're saying, like taking your computer somewhere where they can wipe it and start over so that the root has been addressed, the virus versus the cold that you're experiencing on the other side,
And another analogy, if we're going to keep going with the computer, is a building back up. If it got wiped clean, this safe person can help with, let's rebuild this
Restoring it.
in the right way. Let's make sure everything is lined up in the proper way.
And that was, I think, the beginning of the restoration of our marriage was that ultimatum. I really do. It started there because healing was rapid. After that, you were ready for it. We're going to talk about that in the next episode, but you were ready, and so was I. And Marley was the catalyst.
I needed that.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next episode.